From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Welcome to the special edition of Newsmakers, a debate among the candidates for Lieutenant Governor. Hello, I'm Tim White. As we noted during the primary between 2000 and 2010, a lieutenant governor has been elevated to governor 22 times nationwide. The last time in Rhode Island was in 1950, but it's a position that can change in an instant. During this debate, we aim to show you the differences between the two major candidates looking to become your next lieutenant governor, and they are, from left to right on your screen, Catherine Taylor and Dan McKee. I will be moderating this debate and asking questions along with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. We will begin with 1-minute opening statements from each of our candidates. The order was determined by a drawing. Up first is Dan McKee. Mr. McKee, your opening remarks.
Well, first, thank you for the invitation to be here today. My campaign for Lieutenant Governor has been a very simple one. I believe we can have a better Rhode Island. And to me, what that means, a better Rhode Island means better job opportunities, better economy, and better schools. And as mayor for 12 years, I've had the experience to become governor if that happens in that case. And what I want to share today is the reasons why experience is really a very important issue in this campaign. As 12 years as a mayor of Cumberland, I took a town from junk bond to AA rating. It was the first mayor in the state of Rhode Island to put a tax cap in to make sure that our taxes were controlled. Have not raised taxes more than 6% cumulatively over the last 5 budgets. This year was a 0% tax increase. So when you get to be the lieutenant governor, I think it's very important to be focusing on the small businesses, which we'll talk about today, the long-term health care, and also the regionalization and consolidation that can come out of emergency management. So I look forward to today's debate.
Thank you, Mr. McKee. And now Catherine Taylor. Ms. Taylor, your opening remarks.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today and to speak to the people of Rhode Island about why I would like to serve you as your next Lieutenant Governor. I'm running because, as a citizen and as a taxpayer myself, I want someone in that role who's not there for a promotion or to do a pet project or to have the title, but there to do the work of the job. And yes, by Constitution, that the Lieutenant Governor is there to fill in should the worst happen and the governor not be unable to serve. But there are 3 councils that the Lieutenant Governor by law does chair, and we can use those to great effect to move our economy forward. Long-term care coordinating, small business advocacy, and emergency management advisory. And I have the background to run those councils as the State Director of Elderly Affairs, a small business owner, and having served 20 years in the United States Senate for Senators John and Lincoln Chafee. And I will use the work to inform each other so that we link up the economy and the healthcare industry in a way that improves our economy and the health of our citizens.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. And to our viewers at home, so they know, Catherine Taylor is the Republican candidate and Dan McKee is the Democrat. Let's get to the questions, and Ms. Taylor, we're going to begin with you. You have been tying your opponent to special interests in radio ads that are attacking him. What special interests are you talking about exactly?
Talking about the outside special interests that came in during the primary, the $90,000 that came in from Walmart to into the primary campaign that helped him win that primary.
And why does that bother you?
I think that any time that money that we haven't raised ourselves or that doesn't come from Rhode Islanders, that comes into the state for a campaign to skew an election result, is troubling, and I think all Rhode Islanders are upset by that.
You have been backed by labor unions in this state. Aren't those special interests in their own right?
They're inside Rhode Island, so I think that's part of it, and I think they do represent workers, but labor unions aren't the only people who have been backing me. You know, management has been backing me as well, so I think all sides of the equation think that I'll be well equipped to be Lieutenant Governor.
So you don't think it's hypocritical at all to be supported by labor unions and then attacking him for being supported by other special interests?
Not when it comes from out of state, from folks that we didn't, that we aren't sharing our towns and our schools with.
Mr. McKee, let's talk about the criticism in your ads. You've been tying her to Governor Lincoln Chafee. I believe your ad calls them 2 peas in a pod. What specific policies do Governor Chafee and Taylor share that bother you?
Well, first, the reason the message in the ad says that Catherine has worked for Governor Chafee for more than a decade. That's true. The second piece is that she received a job without any experience in that field, $100,000 a year job without any experience. That's also true. So the point of the ad is to talk about the fact that there is a reason that Catherine received that job. It was more of who she knew than what she knew. So that's, it's a very accurate ad, and I stand by it.
Well, let me ask you, if you take such issue with that connection, why did you hire Governor Chafee's former spokesperson and former campaign manager as your campaign manager?
Well, I'm not using tax dollars to do that, right, Tim? So that's this totally different. It's an apple and orange comparison. But I would like to go back, if I have an opportunity, just to respond to what Catherine said about the outside money.
Sure.
So, first of all, we don't control that. But I mean, I would like to ask Catherine a question: is who paid for this mailing that went out to that my friend received yesterday, which was a very scathing type of a? Do you know who paid for this mailing? Did your campaign pay for this mailing?
Of course, my campaign did not pay for that.
So what's the difference?
I think the difference
What's the difference?
I think the
between
difference
the
is
two?
Rhode Island money and out-of-state money. But let's go back to this this charge that I wasn't experienced or qualified to run the state division of elderly affairs. And that somehow it was cronyism that I got the job. I worked for 7 years for Senator Chafee, and I did an excellent job for him. And then 4 years ago, 162,000 Rhode Islanders voted for me to run a state, to be the third ranking officer in the state, to hold a position, a statewide position of enormous authority. And that's what Governor Chafee saw, that I received more votes than he did, that I received more votes than Mayor McKee has received in all of his elections combined. Those folks had faith in me that I could be a good leader, and he was really answering that call.
And Mr. McKee?
Yeah, the elections are totally different. Yeah, that's the reason that Catherine received the job, and that was in the press release, that she had done well in an election. I can just tell you, when I hire into the Lieutenant Governor's office, that every person I hire in will have substantial experience, because that's what the state needs right now. They need experience to get a state moving in the right direction and change this economy in the state, and that's what I'll do as Lieutenant Governor.
I'm concerned here that there is a real misunderstanding of what the Director of Elderly Affairs really needs to do. It's not just administration. I mean, many of the folks who had held that job before came from the industry and had run a home care agency or an association before. But there's so much more to that job that is important to know as Lieutenant Governor, who runs the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council. It's unique among the department heads in that it's in its state enabling statute and in its federal enabling statute, there's an advocacy role for to advocate on behalf of seniors and adults with disabilities. And so that's something I had actually 25 years of experience with, and also to think broadly about how all of the work of the other departments is really implicated in elderly affairs. So my background in the environment and transportation and behavioral health all brought to bear to make that work much farther ahead than it had ever been.
Okay, Ms. Taylor, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our next question from Ted.
Mr. McKee, it's no secret that issues of education reform, charter schools can divide members of the Democratic Party. Since you're a well-known supporter of those policies, why should a Democrat vote for you over Ms. Taylor?
Well, first of all, the office I keep on hearing about pet projects. I'm not sure that they've really been defined by Catherine in terms of what that means, but I can tell you what my pet project's going to be. Small business, lowest business friendliness in the state, in the country. Just like when I had the bond rating upgrade in our town, I called Moody's and said, what are the 3 things I need to work on to get my bond rating up? 8 bond upgrades later. Did the same thing this summer, called out the company that's ranked as the lowest. What are the 3 things that we need to do to get small business on the right track? So I intend to make small business the priority of that office, along with the other options, but that's the main priority that we have, and do the same thing I did for education. For small business in the state of Rhode Island. Make it a priority and get us out of last place and stop moving up the ladder, and then we know that our unemployment will also decrease. So that's the reason why.
So you're
because
saying
of the experience
education and charters would no longer be a priority for you if you become Lieutenant
Governor? It wouldn't be the top priority of that office.
Would you work on it at all as Lieutenant Governor?
I certainly would be continually advocating for great public schools, because that's really important as well. When we hit Massachusetts levels on public education, and I believe we will see the day when that happens, it's worth as much as $2 billion worth of earning power to the state of Rhode Island. So as far as I'm concerned, they are intertwined. But the pet project, if that's what you want to call it, I'll do the same thing for small business. And that's why I went around to 39 businesses in the state of Rhode Island in the last 30 days, had a cup of coffee with the owners, And I intend to bring those owners in from Mel's Diner and from the Foster State Line Diner and others, and bring them in and talk about small business. I will give the same energy and effort to raising the small business friendliness in the state of Rhode Island as I did to education.
Ms. Taylor, by the same token, as Tim mentioned, you've been endorsed by a large number of labor unions. None have endorsed Mr. McKee. Many Republicans are skeptical about the power of labor unions in Rhode Island. So what do you say to those Republicans? Why should they vote for you?
Well, one of the reasons that the labor unions endorsed me is something I've been working on at Elderly Affairs and will continue to do as Lieutenant Governor, and that's to advocate for the elevated status and pay of direct care workers, of people who care for frail elders, adults with disabilities, and children with special health care needs. And that's something that the labor unions very much want to see happen as well. I think is one of the reasons, too, that, well, not only should Republicans, but everybody vote for me, is that there's an opportunity in this office to look at the healthcare sector in the way that we haven't before, and not just in terms of delivering care, but in terms of the business aspect of it. And I'm the only person running in either party in any of the statewide races that has expertise, experience, or even interest in the health and human services, which is our #1 sector of our economy, 43% of our state budget, and the #1 concern raised by our small businesses in a survey by the Office of Regulatory Reform. And there's so much that can be done by the Lieutenant Governor, who chairs the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council.
Sticking with the union question, though,
Yeah.
Alan Fung, the Republican nominee for governor, has been criticized by Gina Raimondo, the Democrat, for his support for making Rhode Island a right-to-work state. Do you agree or disagree with Mr. Fung on that?
I disagree with him on that. We disagree on a few things, and that's what makes the Republican Party such a great big tent.
And Mr. McKee, how do you feel? Do you think Rhode Island should become a right-to-work state, or would you oppose that?
I would oppose it, and I would be concerned if I was a voter that if Catherine was aligned with a ticket that was for right to work, that she would be hard pressed to push hard against it. So I would be very concerned about that.
Why don't we let you respond to that?
Yes, I would say that my record working for the Chafee administration actually speaks to that. I was hired into that administration to bring my Republican views in a bipartisan administration, and I advocated for things and stood up against things in that administration that I disagreed with. And so the people of Rhode Island can count on me, whether it's a Governor Fung, which I hope, or a Governor Raimondo, that if I disagree, it's an independent office, and the people of Rhode Island and the governor will hear strongly from me on that.
Briefly, Mr. McKee,
yeah, I can give a live
example
example where that didn't happen. I mean, Ride Pay, which was to give prescription money to seniors that needed a donor hole filled. The Chafee administration asked that would be removed from the budget, and Catherine actually didn't give a strong pushback to keep it in the budget. So that's a perfect example of between the two of right to work. A governor moving a policy, and now Governor Chafee tried to move a policy. Thank goodness that our General Assembly overturned that. Otherwise, seniors would have been without that prescription dollars.
Actually,
about $420,000.
I worked very closely with the Assembly to do something that I'm very, very proud of. Ride Pay was a beloved pharmaceutical assistance program that once upon a time was maybe over $20 million, and when I inherited it, it was about $2 million. At the same time, that Medicare Part D began to fill that dreaded donut hole, and that's where this assistance program filled in. So instead of eliminate it altogether, what I built was a transition program that actually helped that handful of seniors who were left holding the bag. If we were to eliminate it altogether, help. So we brought a program down from $2 million to about $150,000 now, and no one was harmed. I'm very proud of that.
I do. Look, this is just a half-an-hour debate,
Sure.
so we're going to go into a rapid-fire section here, and I think both of you know the single most important role of a lieutenant governor is to take over as governor if need be. So we want to get where you stand on some issues here. Some of these are issues that a governor may face. So again, I'm looking for a one-word answer here for the most part. I'll start left to right and alternate the order. Letter grade A through F for Lieutenant Governor Elizabeth Roberts.
I give her an A.
And Mr. McKee.
I would do it as well.
Mr. McKee, are you pro-choice or pro-life?
I am a pro-choice.
And Ms. Taylor?
Can't do one word there because I'm a mother. I'm a woman.
It's a policy, though.
Yeah, I would say as a policy, keep the government out of it.
Okay, and Ms. Taylor, yes or no, would you support a combined ticket for governor and lieutenant governor in future elections?
That's up to the people of Rhode Island.
How would you vote on it?
I think that I would vote no on that.
Mr. McKee?
I think I would vote yes on that. I think if that's the one-word answer that you're looking for.
That sounds
I'd be
good to
happy
me.
to get into detail later on.
No, we don't need to get in depth on that question. Mr. McKee, do you support a high-stakes test as a graduation requirement?
I do support testing as a graduation requirement.
And Ms. Taylor?
Depends on the test.
We have the PARC test coming up. Are you comfortable with PARC?
I'd like to see how it plays out.
Okay. Do you support or oppose binding arbitration for teachers, Ms. Taylor?
I oppose it.
I oppose it.
And finally, Mr. McKee, do you support driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants?
Yes, just like Maryland and Illinois have.
Okay, and Ms. Taylor?
Possibly a driver's privilege card, but a full license would be against federal law.
Okay, Ted?
All right, we have more rapid fires because we don't have a lot of time. So we'll stick with you, Ms. Taylor. Do you support or oppose calling a Rhode Island constitutional convention?
Strongly support.
And why, briefly?
Because I think we need to get at some good government reforms like ethics commission jurisdiction over the assembly. I would, however, ask that delegates sign a pledge that they limit the scope of their work to government reforms.
Mr. McKee, same question, support or oppose, and I'll let you explain.
Thank you. I support it, and the reason why is that 4 in 5 people in the state of Rhode Island can't say we're heading in the right direction. It's time we start listening to them and let them weigh in on the issues that are important to governance in the state of Rhode Island.
We always like a reference to the Channel 12 poll. Mr. McKee, we'll stick with you. Do you support or oppose paying the 38 Studios bonds back?
Do I get a chance to explain that?
Briefly.
Okay. I think it's not a black and white issue. I think it's a combination. And we should be strongly going after the insurance that was in place that we paid $572,000 for. I think we should go after the errors and omissions in terms of the professionals that dealt with that if there is exposure, and then let the taxpayers fill the balance in. But I think it should be strategic, and I don't think it's a black and white issue as everybody's discussing right now.
Same question, Ms. Taylor.
Reluctantly pay the first installment because I'm afraid I don't want to make it more expensive to the taxpayers, but this is a case where I agree. Go after the bad guys with the full force of the law and get that money back for the taxpayers.
And sticking with you, do you support or oppose the pension law that passed in 2011?
I support the idea of it. I know it's in the courts. We're going to see what we're left with and go forward there.
Mr. McKee, do you support or oppose the pension law?
In principle, I do, but I think that we should get back to the table and negotiate, just like I did with our police contract in the town of Cumberland.
Oh, too much agreement here. All right, we'll try another one. Do you support or oppose, Mr. McKee, raising Rhode Island's minimum wage to $10.10 an hour next year?
I think that we should be raising the minimum age in the state of Rhode Island.
To $10.10 or not to $10.10 though?
I think that's a good target.
Okay, Ms. Taylor?
I think we need to go slower than that because I'm really concerned about the overall cost to our small businesses. And I also think that we need to pivot the discussion and look at some jobs that ought not be low-wage jobs like direct care workers and elevate their pay significantly.
And another one, again, I'll let you expand on this. Do you think Rhode Island's current gun laws, Ms. Taylor, we'll start with you. Do you think Rhode Island's current gun laws are too strict, not strict enough, or do they strike the right balance currently?
I'm not sure that they strike the right balance because we're not getting the results that we need in terms of, we're just seeing terrible gun violence in Providence. So I would like to see us go back to the table, knowing that the Second Amendment is very important, but see if we can get more people around the table to reduce gun violence, especially in our neighborhoods in Providence.
So you're not sold on whether to change the laws, you just want to hear from people if that's an option?
Yes, yes. I think we have to reopen the discussion. I don't know where it will end.
All right, Mr. McKee, what do you think of Rhode Island's current gun laws? Too strict, not strict enough, about the right balance?
I think it's about the right balance, but I think there's room to revisit, and I think we should be looking at our police, especially our police chiefs that are calling for some, changes to the law, and I think that we should be really bringing our police and public safety to the table, who are really the ones who are on the front lines and responsible for the public safety in the communities.
So in 2010, almost 40% of Rhode Islanders voted for a candidate whose platform was getting rid of the office of Lieutenant Governor. So I want you to both make your case to voters here. And Mr. McKee, we'll start with you. What is your short pitch on why this office really matters to the average Rhode Islander?
Well, because as I said earlier, I've been out meeting small businesses from every area of the state. It sounds a little corny to some to have a cup of coffee in a diner and talk to people about what's happening in the state, but also talk to the small businesses. We have a very low small business friendliness in the state of Rhode Island. We need to raise it. The lieutenant governors, that's right in the wheelhouse of the lieutenant governor. That alone is a reason to have a lieutenant governor, because in the next 4 years, I'll work as hard as I can to move us up the ladder in business friendliness. And it will have a significant impact in the state of Rhode Island, just as I have as mayor. We did a 600,000 square foot addition to CVS, which brought in hundreds of jobs. We're doing almost a 300,000 square foot expansion of a worldwide leader in wire exploration that's going to invest several millions of dollars into our community. So I have the skill, I have the experience, and I have 30 years experience as a small business person. And I intend, again, as I said earlier, to do what I did for education, to make that a front burner issue. And we'll get out of last place and we'll move up the ladder.
Is there one single thing that you could do and just snap your fingers as lieutenant governor for small businesses without, say, the help of the General Assembly, or I should say the approval of the General Assembly?
No, but that's the way government works, Tim. You need to come up with good ideas that you can get legislative bodies to pass, just like I have in the town of Cumberland when I got them to pass a tax cap 2 years before the General Assembly passed the tax cap, right? Just as I did when we got a school funding formula passed that now millions of dollars are actually being distributed into communities throughout the state of Rhode Island. 4 and 5 taxpayers are benefiting from that. So yeah, you've got to get that within the first 90 days in office. I'll come up with a plan that will show how we can be competitive with our neighbors on Social Security taxes, on gasoline taxes, on sales taxes, and corporate taxes, and really put a legitimate plan that you have to spend time on to actually get in front of the General Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. McKee. Ms. Taylor, same question to you. I mean, a lot of people would like to carve $1 million out of the budget and eliminate that office together. So talk to them. What's your pitch?
Sure. So actually, my candidacy comes from that same impulse, and the office can only be eliminated by a constitutional amendment, by that kind of approval. So in the meantime, I want the person in the role to be doing real work and not spending time coming up with a plan. We have plans all over the place that tell us what's wrong. We have problem statements all over the place. We need solution statements now. And so what the lieutenant governor needs to do while we have that office is exert leadership. One of the things I want to do is help to draw the connections between things that haven't been drawn before. To draw the connection between, for example, being the only state in the country that's lost our senior population, and the fact that we are at the bottom of the barrel in economic indicators, and to show that those folks are the natural customers for our ocean state hospitality, tourism economy, and to put legislation in to the General Assembly on day one to reduce and eliminate Social Security taxes, reduce or eliminate the benefit, the tax on the benefits of veterans and military, and even to have some sort of incentive to keep state retirees here and those pensions spent here, because those folks are the customers for our economy, and if we can keep the customers here first, the economy around it will grow. That's what I want to do.
Believe it or not, we have just 5 minutes left in this debate. It goes by quick, so I want to go to a question from Ted.
I will stay with you, Ms. Taylor. One of Lieutenant Governor Roberts' big undertakings has been creating Rhode Island's Health Source RI Obamacare marketplace. Ms. Taylor, you've said it should remain state-run, but it wants a roughly $20 million annual budget, Health Source RI. How do you think the state should pay for that roughly $20 million annual budget?
Sure. So first of all, let's get at the real costs. I have a lot of experience with these federal grants from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and when the money comes to us, we figure out a way to spend it. So now, with the federal money gone, I would like some of our talented auditors from the Office of Management and Budget, and we have some really good ones, to go in there, scrub those numbers, really figure out what it will really take to run it. And then there are a number of options we can look at. I would never want to top-down suggest what it would be, but we can look at fees, we can look at surcharges on insurance, we can look at an offset in the budget, we can go into other programs in the Health and Human Services and eliminate some of the layers in them. I'm pretty familiar with what a lot of those.
So does that mean at $20 million, if that's how much they say they need, then you would give it back to the feds? It's too much?
Absolutely not. I think we have to figure out a way to hang on to it for the next 3 or 4 years if we can manage it, because that's how long it will take to see the real benefits of it. Because this is the one mechanism that we've identified that the individual purchaser of insurance can put their own hands on the cost of the levers of cost and quality and move those levers over time. We're already getting some significant benefit for small businesses. You know, this is their #1 concern. I've had businesses tell me on the campaign trail how many thousands of dollars that they've been able to save on their own costs through the exchange. Got to give it time to work, and then we can make a decision.
Mr. McKee, same question. You've expressed some reservations about Health Source RI. Do you think it should stay state-run or be given back to the federal government?
Yeah, and I think it's being reported incorrectly on advertisement that Catherine is running right now on the John DePietro show that says that I actually want to give Health Source back to the federal government. That's not true. So I'll give you an example of what I've done, and one of the things that I can do.
No, but on Health Source RI, what do you want to do with Health Source RI?
I want to keep control of it and leverage it if, in fact, we can regionalize it or reduce the cost of running the office. I mean, we certainly is laid in with some very heavy pays that are there, and I think we'd have to take a very close look at that. But I was going to say, as municipal leader, I brought municipal leaders throughout the state of Rhode Island. Our cost per person was in about $840 a year, which is about what 26,000 people at $22 million is. Its cost was subsidizing, if we had to put that into the budget, about $840 per person. We were able to regionalize and consolidate our efforts with mayors and municipal leaders to lower that cost to $360. So my feeling is that clearly $830, $840, 5, 6, 10 municipalities that pool together 500,000 people can lower their costs substantially. I think that there's plenty of room in that space, and you need to revisit it and do exactly what I did as a municipal leader with health insurance in my own town. One
of only 3 official responsibilities of the Lieutenant Governor is to co-chair the Emergency Management Advisory Council. What changes would you recommend, if any, for the EMA? Mr. McKee.
Well, I have met with the EMA, and I think that we're going to partner in very well. Not only would I look to strengthen the statutes of the emergency management and make that more, I don't think we've revisited that in several years, Tim. I think I'll do the same thing on the small business advocacy and also the long-term health care.
Real brief, do you prefer an adjutant general to run it, or do you like having a civilian at the head?
I think the civilian is doing it. I'm looking forward to working with the, I think it's Jamie that's there, and I'm looking forward to working with her. I met with her this week. And one of the things that I can bring to the table in terms of regionalization, which is going to be a big thing, especially what's been happening recently with the Ebola issues, that we need to create a regional strategy in public safety dispatching. We want it as municipal leaders. I will make that office a place where municipal leaders can hang their hat and help the taxpayers in the state. And that's the first thing that we'll work on in emergency management, is to regionalize and public safety.
Ms. Taylor, we have less than a minute. Any changes to the EMA that you'd like to make at all?
Yes, I think we've got to sort of prepare in advance for how we receive huge infusions of federal cash in an emergency, so that when that's spent very rapidly, we can account for it. That's something that states across the country struggle with, but we can get many, many, many millions in all at once in an emergency, and then out it goes without a good process for accounting for it. So that's one thing I would work on.
All right, my thanks to both the candidates, Republican Catherine Taylor and Democrat Dan McKee, for joining us on the program and this special edition of Newsmakers, a debate for Lieutenant Governor. If you missed any of it, it's online, WPRI.com. Make sure you head to the polls on November 4th. Polls open at 7 o'clock and they close at 8 p.m. Of course, you must bring a valid photo ID. That does it for this Lieutenant Governor debate on Newsmakers. For Ted Nesi, I'm Tim White, and we will see you next week on Newsmakers.